Chat, here we go. It's another match with Diaz. Diaz has been playing great, and on the other side of the field, it is a single dot, but actually, it's Dralii if you look at the top of your screen. Dralii coming to US East to face Diaz, and Diaz has been taking down a couple top Europeans when they travel across the seas to play on US East. To be fair, they're both traveling quite a distance. Dralii had a lot of success towards the end of Salt Mine EU. We'll see how he fares against maybe top 2, top 3 player from the Salt Mine NA, but it seems like Diaz is continually on the rise. If you haven't seen his most recent show matches, make sure you check those out, but he did just play Moxie in a best of 7, and he was able to come out on top 4-1, and even though it was a match that I ran, I'm trying to remember, he also played one more player. Who did Diaz play first? It was a prize show match. Oh, it was Nas, of course. It was Nas. Yeah, I also played Nas and had a lot of success there. Can he handle BDS's Dralii, though? Diaz backing off. Dralii turtling to start his dribble. And will be able to slot this off the backboard. I know a lot of people are going to be asking because it is cross-server. Oh, wow. Dralii actually had decent ping before this test lobby started, and now he has 136. I was going to say he's going to have like 90, but no, he has much worse ping now. Is it because... No, this is a physical server, it looks like, as Dralii scores again. 3-1. Okay, there he goes. He's back down to 100. So it's about perfectly matched. I mean, I don't know if Dralii's going to stay here, but 100, 104. I've mentioned it previously, but when the Europeans come across the US East to play against Diaz, it is a slight advantage to Diaz, even though their ping may be similar. Diaz a lot more used to playing on US East. In fact, he played his entire Salt Mine on US East, so he's no, foreigner to competitive US East games. Whereas Dralii, Moxie, Nas all getting to play on EU, not as used to having to play on 100 ping like Diaz is. Dralii seems to be playing almost slow, is the way I want to put it at the start of this game. He's noticing that Diaz is backing off, and he's not rushing to bring the ball at him. He's actually playing very stoic as he waits for Diaz to make a move. This time he is going to get punished for it. Just watching Diaz set up this flick and couldn't quite get back to the ball. Actually did have an orange trail, so that is Dralii assisting Diaz there. Dralii may need to mix up his kickoffs because... Oh, wait, never mind. He'll be just fine, although I think he is cutting it close there as he saved that off the post. Diaz to the skies. Dralii early challenge. Dralii been stuck on defense due to a poor kickoff, and he does eventually get scored. So I do think he does have to think about his kickoffs. Even though he was able to stop the immediate goal, it is eventually going to be a kickoff goal for Diaz, especially on those straighter kickoffs. Diaz going to fake. He wants to stay one step ahead. Almost got bumped or demoed. But it will be a full field dribble now. Dralii didn't have the 100 boost. He had to take a trip back to get it. And Diaz recognizing that there's a good chance that the right side of the net is available when that's the case. Dralii had to cut in, get the 100. Although he certainly had more than enough time to catch back up. But he just recovered at an angle that was not going to be able to cover the opposite side of the net. Diaz, little camera check to confirm that he has indeed earned himself a clean possession. These multiple resets are never going to be a goal, but partway through that dribble, it becomes a defensive effort to make sure Dralii doesn't get an easy possession, and I think Diaz did a decent job of that. Diaz, half flip, and a goal. Dralii tried to recover back as he cleared this across his net. Players really don't want to use a ton of boost. They also don't want to get strong touches that push the ball out and usually end up in the opposition staying in control. What that defender wants is to be able to bring the ball down into a dribble and create a possession out of it. But if you get too safe, or sorry, too slow like Dralii did, I wouldn't say it was safe. It's actually quite risky. Then Diaz might be able to take it away. That being said, Dralii gets a kickoff goal. Keeps himself within one, just over halfway through. Diaz resets. And it's used at a time that perfectly outplays Dralii. It's not a speedy reset at all. But the movement comes after Dralii jumps. And you almost see Dralii expecting him not to use it that early. He went to challenge and thought, oh, Diaz is going to be dropping down. But Diaz does immediately use the flip. And now another wall to air dribble. Reset right at ceiling height. Sees Dralii jump, and this time he does go for the fake. And I think that is what Dralii was trying to read last time around. He was expecting a drop down. This time he expects some contact, and it never comes. As Diaz goes underneath for a 7-4 lead. Dralii not going to be able to pre-flip into the back corner for boost in time. But is he going to be able to stay ahead? He is. Enough to get the boost, but immediately get demoed. So now Diaz with space. Not one to decline an opportunity to take to the skies. It's going to be a flick this time. Crossbar down and out. Dralii able to get the save. Just a couple pixels away from perfection on that shot. Now Dralii cutting immediately infield. Instead of going for that back corner setup, he wants to bring the ball straight down the center of the field. Diaz immediately rejoins the play. He'll back off now. It's Dralii's turn to show what he can do in the air. And he can do a lot. And it's going to be a fake. Diaz covers it. Wall dashing his way in the corner. Even though he didn't make contact with the ball, you could see Dralii respecting the wall dashes, backing off, but for good reason. He thought Diaz was being a bit overzealous, and he proved it right here. As Diaz cannot get a strong 50. And Dralii able to follow it up to keep himself within 2. Wave dash kickoff for Dralii. Kind of adjustment he needed to make. Those standard kickoffs were going Diaz's favor. He sees the pre-jump, goes back to the ground, back up again, and Diaz mirrors him the whole way. Able to pre-flip into the corner for a 100 boost, and now Diaz playing it a little bit slower, maybe because of the game context. He's going to go for the flick, and it's going to score. Diaz showing he has the full range of 1v1 ability, and when Dralii recognizes that it is not going to be an air dribble from Diaz, he's not able to turn, make a decent challenge on the flick. He wanted to close that distance instead of allowing Diaz to walk it all the way in. Dralii resets ahead of the ball. Diaz actually able to make the save from underneath. And with 33 seconds on the clock, it's going to be Diaz passing to himself off the ceiling, and he beats Dralii back to the net. Dralii wants to go next, understandably, but we'll give a nice shout out to Diaz here. Dralii was going to ceiling height. That's a great read from Diaz to recognize that Dralii, who's been challenging on the ceiling all series long or all game long, would not be prepared for a quick shot. What better way to do it than a pass off the ceiling to himself? Game number 1, going to the Brazilian. $116 to 104. Although I have seen a couple spike ups for Dralii. He hasn't mentioned wanting a new server, so we will stick here. Diaz a bit used to this 110 consistent, it seems. As he's going to go low 50 and tap in a first. I mentioned it in the previous games. It's kind of worth mentioning every time in case this is your first time watching Diaz or watching a nice 100 ping match. I recommend going in and maybe playing on a server that isn't your normal server, one that puts you up at 100, 110, and see how much movement on the ball, see how it is really tough to play, and remind yourselves that these guys are playing under those conditions. The spectator client doesn't show any of that, so it looks like just a regular game to us, but it should be noted that obviously we would ideally play every match on LAN. And I don't say this as an excuse for either player. Just a reality of these cross-region matchups. Still fun to see how these guys match up. Dralii on the air dribble bump. Diaz goes underneath, sees an opportunity to just make a ground level save. Dralii now chipping and looking for a demo, and he got it! And now swinging super wide to guarantee his goal. That was a great snipe on the back wall. I thought Diaz had actually evaded it. Dralii wants to watch this replay. Big kickoff for Diaz. Dralii going to try and make something work despite the boost disadvantage, at least for a moment, but recognizing he had lost control, he does leave the play. Attacking again now. Soft first touch. He saw the early challenge and he tried to accelerate, see if he could tap over the top of Diaz and then go for a double on the back wall. Not a bad idea. The margins were slim for it though, and Diaz is able to connect just slightly, and that's all it takes. Nice challenge at the midfield from Dralii. The quick shot forces a tough save, but Diaz gets it. Needed to get underneath the ball to get that save, and somehow did it, although it is eventually going to be a Dralii goal. Life is cool. Thank you for the 400 or just about 400 viewer raid. I believe Life is Cool is a French streamer, right? Big French streamer, bringing that community to watch maybe Dralii, root for Dralii. Or root for just good Rocket League in general. Diaz first to this midfield. And he will try and pin Dralii back. Dralii's been able to hold on to a good amount of boost though, but whenever you separate from the play as much as Dralii did, it's hard to get a read on what you can get away with in terms of rejoining the play, and that was kind of half-hearted. It seemed like Dralii went for a full dive and then at the last second stopped. Not going to be able to get away with that. Has to actually be a challenge if you're going to go in that deep. Diaz, the 2-goal lead. Diaz multiple resets as he tries to get this shot, and he's going to need it to be a dunk if he wants to finish it. Instead, it's going to be a much more likely result of Dralii counterattacking. I mean, Diaz started that dribble so far away from the net, or I should say he gave a ton of power on the first touch away from the net and had to use, what was that, 4 resets to even bring it somewhat back. Maybe the Prime, by the way, Gold Star OG. Diaz caught Dralii out a few different times. I want to watch Dralii again, shadowing from the midfield. He keeps swinging so wide, and Diaz is just recognizing that there's an opening on the far side of the net. Doesn't even really have to go that far in order to get that one. That was fairly center. Dralii's so worried about maybe the ball getting put behind him if he gets the net too early. He's left the opposite side open. Nice read on that early challenge from Dralii, wall dashing to get back to the ball, and it's a goal. There actually was a chance that Diaz made it back. A nice little exhibition of the wall dashes to keep top speed. Diaz, camera check to see if Dralii was turning away, and it seemed like he actually confirmed that he was, but he gets up into the air anyways and is able to find a demo. It seemed like Dralii was going to end that possession quickly, but he forced him to use his flip on 0 boost, which makes him an easy target as he falls to the ground. What was that roll up? I thought for sure that was going to roll up the side wall. It seems like Dralii did too. Somehow it came off the wall though and did not allow him to get that setup. Dralii going to try and rush back to this ball, see if he can get it to the net before Diaz recovers, and he just barely does. The margins that these top players play at, we get so used to it, but man, that had to be perfectly placed to not allow Diaz to find a way back. I mean, this has been an issue for Dralii all series. These standard kickoffs on the slight offsets, I mean, that is just, I think that's just Dralii's fault. He got a glancing blow on that ball. Dralii undercut as Diaz goes to the back corner. Another dribble at ceiling height, has to go the full distance with his 100 boost, and he just set up a pass to Dralii, and it should be a freebie for him. Not often do you see a player who has used up all their boost, or really you don't often see a player use all their boost on their dribble because they know they need to save some for a potential counterattack, but even if they do, they often go to the ground and try and prep for a much safer attack. Diaz went all in. Looked like Dralii was trying to get like a wave dash pop of some sort or flick. Didn't hit it though. Dropping the whoops in chat. So he'll back off. Diaz just wants to get a power shot to punish. He's just slightly wide. He saw Dralii setting up for that aerial defense high on the wall like he often does. So instead of playing into it and taking the aerial, he tried to see if he could sneak a power shot on the ground to punish that adjustment. Dralii is turtled in defense right now as he waits for Diaz to bring him the ball. And Diaz will go low 50. Not a bad idea with the way Dralii is playing in net right now. Clearly a bit frustrated and likely to overjump a slow play. Interesting kickoff from Dralii. As his car does not roll at all on the way to the kickoff. And Diaz is going to get another one on him. 9-6. Clean possession for Diaz. We watched it from Dralii's perspective. But the reset shot sends the ball to the opposite side of the net, something he has done consistently against Dralii. Diaz didn't have a perfect swing through the midfield boost and set up on the dribble. You can see him pausing there to make sure he got that. Demo on Dralii is Dralii. Yeah, clearly I was just waiting for the next. At this point, it seemed obvious that Dralii wanted to go next. And he is going to save us 20 seconds as Diaz goes up 2-0 in the best of 5. I'm subbing. Game 3. Diaz and Dralii. Dralii going to change up the kickoff immediately starting this game as he goes full half flip and he gets himself a clean possession. Although he will hand that possession away with a musty far out of the net. No way that was going to be a goal. Diaz has been almost perfect up here in the air. This time the reset is taken down for the 50. Dralii got a good enough initial save and Diaz got greedy. Diaz trying to keep the ball directly in front of the net. Oh, Diaz. He has been playing amazing recently, but unfortunately we're going to make him watch it. We're going to make him watch it. Just a little catch right there that he did not make. He is human after all. Maybe a good sign. I know this happens to me when I'm playing in matches, especially when I'm losing. Just seeing the other player all of a sudden be human again when it feels like they can't make any mistakes can sometimes be very inspiring. So we'll see if Dralii gets revitalized, seeing that Diaz can just make mistakes, can give him freebies. But I'll be honest, it looks like Dralii is still searching for a way to get out of the tilts. And I think it would take a bit of a lead to do so. Normally going for those sidewall reads in 1v1, incredibly risky, not something that Dralii would do under normal circumstances, I don't think. But if he were to hit it, and that and a couple more, it might be able to relock him back in. Sometimes playing unorthodox is the answer and starts the comebacks, but I would say more often than not usually results in falling out of the match. We'll see what happens here for Dralii as his air dribble leads to nothing. Diaz just constantly staying on the ball, not allowing Dralii to turn back in. And it does eventually result in a goal. It's not a lot of boost. The wave dash touch just says, go save this, Dralii. Dralii didn't want to. Dralii wanted to wait on the ground and play it off the bounce. He had a boost advantage that he was eventually trying to capitalize on. But the moment never came as Diaz using the flip late and wants a bump. Dralii gets over the top of it. And can he get the counterattack? He should be able to. He does. Not often do you see someone let the ball fall as far as Diaz did, or Diaz just did, and still use the flip. Just because the resulting shot is so weak. Because you're fighting so much downward momentum. The only time you'll see it used is when a player is challenging in that exact moment, just to get it over the top of him. But Dralii was clearly shadowing. Diaz on the counterattack. The speed is not enough. Dralii able to get the save. Dralii hovering at ceiling height as he looks to intercept this dribble. Held that flip the whole way and Now trying to counterattack himself. Can he get it over the top of Diaz? Diaz just barely has the recovery. Interesting flip on the sidewall to get a smooth catch from Diaz. Now the flick. The least likely of the past few shots to go in, and that counterattack was definitely over the top, but far wide of the net. Dralii to the ceiling again. Diaz tried to go over the top of him, but Dralii gets just enough on the ball, and we'll get a lead here. Over halfway through this game, Dralii has cleaned it up. Can he keep it going for the rest of this match? Another fake kickoff. Diaz couldn't place it, but might actually would have been better off had he put it on target. It would have been a Dralii touch most likely, and then the end of his possession. This way, he actually still has boost, still has control. Air dribble bump on Dralii. Dralii gets out underneath it. Can he get back to make the save? He can. Diaz really has no choice but to help him save it. You could see him churning, trying to think of a way he could somehow get that back on target from playing inside the net. Diaz not going to be allowed to get boost here. Starved out. Or I shouldn't say that, because the boost does spawn late. He does get the boost, but not allowed to stay in control of the ball. Dralii chases him down, doesn't connect on the demo, and that should be a goal, but Diaz just missed wide. Wasn't watching from Diaz's perspective. There's a chance that he missed because he is being pressured by Dralii, forced to play it quicker than he would have liked, or there's also a chance that he just missed an open net. Hard to say. But Diaz will back off into the corner. Now starting an air dribble as Dralii passively waits in net. And again, Diaz putting the ball out ahead of Dralii. So often in ones, you see players having to sneak balls behind defenders because they're so prepped and they're rushing out ahead to stop those kind of shots, but that just hasn't been the case against Dralii. Dralii has been expecting less speed out of Diaz. He is surprising time and time again, and he'll do it again here. This time just speeding to the ball quickly. Dralii has a tough read to make off the ceiling here. Diaz just takes the lead with 2 quick goals. And this is dangerous when you're Dralii, who clearly towards the end of game 2 had a bit of tilt at the start of this one. He wasn't playing his regular ones game, although he did clean it up in later parts of the game. Looks like the mental is still there, as a midfield 50 results in a goal in a tie game. Dralii cannot clip the midfield boost like he wanted to, which is devastating. Allows Diaz to have 100. Interesting flip into this challenge. Not often do you see basically a musty to try and challenge defensively, but it did not lead to a favorable 50 at all, and Diaz rewarded. I mean, really all that came down to was the boost grab at midfield. You could tell Dralii half gave up on the play after he wasn't able to get it, because it should have been a situation where he was favored. Instead, he gave Diaz a possession. Diaz, in an attempt to save this, will guide it in. So 5-5. Dralii having some of those standard kickoffs go his way. Probably needed that to happen. If he wanted to stay in this series, delay kickoff from Dralii, very clearly a delay. I say delay, it was just some kind of awkward approach, but because it wasn't a speed flip, it's therefore a delay. Now Dralii with 30 seconds. He does not want to take it directly at Diaz when he's expecting. It seems like he wants to buy a bit of time and start a dribble from a turtle. Get the reset around his net and go for the full field pinch. I'm not sure that that's the smartest way to play this tie game, as he will hand the ball back to Diaz. Dralii has a save. I wonder if Dralii just feels like he was going to play better out of defense for some reason. Certainly could have worked for a better opportunity there, but it'll be overtime in game number 3. Dralii wave dash kickoff. Here is another great opportunity to end the game. You try and go for that reset twice. Either way, he doesn't use either one, and then he scoops over the top of Diaz as Diaz reacted You see him going all the way to the ceiling and back down. Thought Dralii was going to make a first touch there as he approached the ball, but Dralii turns underneath it, gets a reset, and gets power late in order to get it around Diaz, get his first game win. Game number 4. Diaz and Dralii. You see he's back to Dot now. For anybody who's wondering, I think Dralii's name is Dot. My nickname for him on Steam is Dralii, so it might toggle back and forth between them. Diaz defensively able to stop Dralii on the first possession, although shot not on target in the first place. Dralii waiting for an opportunity to strike here with a boost advantage. He uses it to bring it into the corner, but loses any real chance on net, so he will back off. Diaz to the skies. Never really had a plan late there, so he does just leave the ball off for Dralii, who's going to start this bit of defense with ball cam off, which seemed like an interesting decision to me. But maybe when you're as good as Dralii is, it doesn't matter. You know what the setup's going to look like. He turned ball cam off right as Diaz started the dribble. Diaz will reset it over the top of him. Diaz again having success just attacking the opposite side of the net of Dralii. This time dropped it right around the center. Dralii was able to cover it. Dralii, ground level bump will get him on the board. Lights, thank you for the 5 months, by the way. I'm not sure if I thank that sub. I want to make sure you get your shout out. Dralii just enough on the counter attack. No, not enough. Diaz gets around it. But Dralii waiting at the midfield. Has a reset early challenge off the ceiling. Dralii resets the back corner. He's going to try to go the distance at ceiling heights, and he plays good. Keep away. That would have been a ridiculous double. It actually had an orange trail off that bounce, so it seemed like a slight touch from Dralii, but not enough to score it. Diaz now trying to read Dralii. He's done that so well on his air dribbles. Dralii's mixed up his defense, challenging from the ceiling, staying on the ground. Diaz has always had the answer no matter what. This time wants to win the race to the ball, and he does. At least enough to get himself the goal. Wave dash kickoff for Dralii. Now going to earn him a clean possession as Diaz can't get the ball. A nice single jump pop to keep it away from him as he had low boost. Bought time for Dralii to get even more, but not able to turn anything out of that possession. Now it's Diaz back the other way. He'll go to the ground as Dralii was going in and out of the net, and Diaz recognizing the way to beat that. Diaz had placed the last couple shots high. Interesting. Dralii attacked the top of the net immediately and then came down to make a low save. Seems like he's searching for answers right now in ways to stop Diaz. Certainly not a defensive maneuver you see players doing very frequently. Now he kind of single jumped and then popped up for a pre-jump. It actually works really well. Takes the ball away. Might even get him a goal. So talking about that unorthodox style and how it sometimes can pay off, it works here for Dralii as he puts himself back within one. Dralii another clean possession off kickoff. Gonna play the dribble from the ground. Diaz up in the air, wants to bump him. Diaz gets around it and controls the ground bounce to set up the counterattack. Dralii has not had a ton of success with those air dribble bumps. He scored one this game, I think, at ground level. But he's going for those bumps really early, really far away from the net. Diaz be able to work his way around those. Diaz, another great catch, could be a goal, and it will be. Dralii goes to ceiling height again to try and challenge. Diaz protects the ball well there. A 5-2 lead for Diaz and a kickoff in his favor. He could start to put this away with a nice shot. Early use of the reset, gets another. Puts it directly on Dralii's car. Diaz has to get around to get this reset when he takes that first touch away from the net. It means it's going to be a very slow play. Dralii saw that as his opportunity to challenge, and I believe it was. But unfortunately for him, he did not have the kind of boost to recover, so you see him slowly falling to the ground while Diaz sets up the goal. 6-2. Dralii wants to go to his back corner. Diaz not going to allow him. Undercuts him, grabs the boost, bumps him out of the way, and we'll demo him now as Dralii turtling. We've seen him turtling all series long. I think he started the series with a quick turtle, and actually Diaz not going to be able to score here. That's what I'm talking about in terms of, Dralii. I thought for sure this was just pure tilt. I mean, I swear you guys would think the same. Dralii just flopping around on defense, seemingly fully tilted, just allowing Diaz to score, but that's not how it works out. He gets just enough of a touch. The ball goes to the crossbar. Diaz can't score quick enough, and then all of a sudden it's an easy play for Dralii. So Dralii reaching deep into the bag of tricks, it would seem, to find ways to get out of defense and get some goals. But he's going to have to do it a lot quicker now with 36 seconds. He's undercutting Diaz. He wants some bumps. He's going to get it at low speed, and he just owned goal. We watched it from Dralii's perspective. He knew that a shot was going to be going bottom left. He did it without ball cam on to try and make the save, and instead he just doubles it in. No touch on the kickoff. Diaz, first touch resets. I mean, look, Dralii actually got a favorable position from this, even though he didn't touch the kickoff at all. But yeah, I think it's over for him now, as he is not making any real attempts on goal. Diaz, last second double for the fans, doesn't connect. Dralii trying to put one on to go out in style. And it definitely would have been that if he had found the angle, but Game 4 going to go to Diaz. Another victim of the EU players hopping over onto US East to play Diaz as the streak continues.